Imagine you just hit like the absolute biggest milestone of your career.
Right.
Maybe your startup finally went public, or I don't know, maybe that impossibly complex code you've been writing finally compiled flawlessly.
The dream scenario.
Exactly. Or you just landed that promotion you've been chasing for a decade. But statistically speaking, this is the exact moment you are most likely to completely sabotage yourself.
Yeah, it really is. It's the highest point of risk.
Which is wild. But today, we are looking at something that feels like it just shouldn't exist. We're doing a deep dive into a 1,400-year-old 3-line ancient text.
Only 3 lines, yeah.
Just 3 lines.
Yeah.
But it actually contains this flawless, step-by-step psychological debugging protocol designed specifically to prevent you from crashing at the peak of your success.
And, the contrast between the format and the function is really what makes this so compelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, we generally keep our modern empirical sciences completely quarantined from ancient philosophical or spiritual traditions.
Right, like totally separate worlds.
Exactly. We put the silicon chips and behavioral psychology labs in one box and then all the historical literature in another.
Yeah, never the twain shall meet.
But the document we're analyzing today, which is this fascinating 19-layer interdisciplinary neurocognitive analysis of a very short text called Surah An-Nasr, it completely shatters that compartmentalization.
It really does.
It doesn't treat these 3 verses as, mere historical poetry. It treats them as a highly structured, almost mathematical blueprint.
A universal blueprint.
Yeah.
And I think that is our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack how a few ancient sentences map perfectly onto the reality of, say, a modern software developer running debugging protocols.
Or a startup founder trying to scale without losing their mind.
Right. Or honestly, just anyone trying to escape the crushing, paralyzing weight of modern perfectionism. Because it applies to all of that.
Yeah, it really is universal.
So let's start at the beginning of any major achievement, because before the crash, you need an actual breakthrough.
Right, the inciting incident.
Yeah. So the first verse translates to, and I'm quoting here, when the help of Allah and the victory comes.
Right.
Now, on the surface, I read that and I think, okay, standard historical statement about a battle or victory. But the document completely rewires that assumption.
It does. It argues this isn't about passively waiting for luck at all.
Okay, so break that down for us. What's actually happening there?
Well, the linguistic breakdown in the software layer of the analysis reveals a distinct causal architecture. It starts with the very first Arabic word of the text, which is iza.
Iza.
Right. And linguistically, it's an absolute time adverb. But if we translate that into system dynamics or software engineering, Wiza functions as an event trigger.
Oh, interesting.
It's an if condition.
Like an if condition in coding, meaning like if X happens, then execute Y.
Precisely. And that underlying logic completely changes how we view success. It suggests that a true breakthrough is not some random chaotic strike of lightning.
Right. It's not just luck.
No, it is an asynchronous event that fires automatically when specific underlying conditions are met within a system. So the text establishes right away that we are dealing with a programmatic reality.
Okay, let me try an analogy here to see if I'm grasping the mechanism, because I want to make sure you, the listener, can picture this.
Aim for it.
If a person, or maybe an entire project team, is functioning like a computer system, eventually you hit a wall, like you just run out of RAM.
Exactly, you bottleneck.
Right. And the text introduces the concept of An-Nasr, which translates to help or support. Functionally, to me, this feels like calling an external API when our internal processing power is totally maxed out.
That is spot on.
Really? Because it's like we are reaching out to a broader cloud service because the local machine simply cannot process the problem anymore.
Yeah, and the source material explicitly uses that exact framework. It calls An-Nasr an external API integration.
Oh, wow. It literally uses those words.
Yes. When a system's internal modules are insufficient during a crisis, it must ping an external support channel. And this external integration is what creates the condition for the next word in the verse, which is Feth.
Feth.
Right. And while Feth generally means victory, its literal translation is an opening.
An opening, like unlocking a door that was previously barring your way.
Exactly. Or, keeping with our system architecture metaphor, it's the loosening of firewall rules.
Ah.
It's about safely opening locked ports to the outside world to allow new data in. The document actually connects this to the business strategy concept of the Blue Ocean Accelerator.
Oh, I love that concept.
Right. So when you are trapped in a highly competitive, restrictive environment, a red ocean, Your system is expending all its energy just trying to survive the local competition.
You're just fighting for scraps.
Exactly. But the external API call, the An-Nasr, provides the processing power required to bypass that restrictive competition and open up an entirely new, uncrowded market space.
A blue ocean.
Yes. A cognitive horizon where you aren't fighting for scraps anymore.
The technical mechanics of that are fascinating, but what really hooked me was how the document maps this software metaphor onto human psychology.
The psychological layer is brilliant.
Especially regarding the modern burnout crisis. Because when that firewall opens, when you finally hit that blue ocean and experience massive success, the brain does something very, very strange.
Yeah, it really does. The analysis points directly to the amygdala and a phenomenon it terms success arrogance.
Success arrogance. That sounds painfully familiar.
I mean, the modern, highly individualized tendency is to claim total, absolute ownership of our victories.
Oh, 100%.
We convince ourselves that our local machine, our internal processor, did all of the heavy lifting. We ignore the API call entirely.
Which is such a dangerous illusion. I mean, think about the last time you had a massive win. Just think about it. How much of that did your ego immediately claim for itself?
Probably all of it.
Right. You probably thought, I worked the longest hours, I wrote the best code, I am a total genius.
Yeah, we all do it.
But the educational psychology layer of this document brings in the zone of proximal development, which completely dismantles that illusion.
It really does. The mechanism behind the zone of proximal development is vital to understand here. It's a concept developed by psychologist Lev Vygotsky.
Right.
The idea is that there is a physical, neurological threshold of learning or achievement that a human brain simply cannot cross in isolation.
Like a hard limit.
Yes. It isn't a matter of just trying harder. The neural pathways literally do not exist yet.
Wow.
You physically require the cognitive scaffolding of a teacher, a mentor, or an external network to bridge the gap between what you can do alone and what you can achieve with guidance.
So we physically cannot pass certain thresholds without external help, meaning acknowledging that help isn't just an exercise in being humble or polite.
No, not at all.
It is structurally, scientifically accurate. And the document argues that by explicitly recognizing An-Nasr, by admitting we needed that external API, we prevent cognitive overload.
Okay.
We bypass the chronic stress that leads to burnout because we drop the illusion that we have to generate all the power internally.
That's the key. By recognizing your place as a node connecting to a larger network, rather than an isolated supercomputer, you relieve an immense amount of pressure from the system.
That makes so much sense.
But, and this is important, that realization creates a new vulnerability.
Okay, here we go.
If you've successfully opened the firewall and connected to the external network, you are no longer operating in a vacuum. The system is suddenly exposed.
Right, which brings up a massive structural risk. If we are suddenly opening our internal systems to external inputs, how do we keep from getting completely overwhelmed?
You have to scale.
Exactly. A successful system doesn't just sit there once the breakthrough happens. It scales. And that thrusts us into the second verse.
Verse 2.
Which reads, and you see the people entering in multitudes. So we are moving rapidly from an isolated individual breakthrough to mass contagion.
Contagion is the right word. The operative word analyzed here is avakin, which means waves or multitudes.
Waves. Okay.
And through the lens of system dynamics, this describes nonlinear scaling. We aren't talking about one user joining at a time.
Right. It's not a trickle.
No. This is the network effect model studied at MIT, heavily tied to the critical mass theory from Harvard.
The tipping point.
Yeah.
Like you push a boulder up a hill for years, and then suddenly it crests the peak and rolls down the other side at blinding speed.
Exactly. The software equivalent detailed in the text is bulk data ingestion.
Okay, bulk data ingestion.
Yeah. Instead of individual data packets trickling in, you have high bandwidth block level data flowing into the main system simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
It is a massive sudden scaling event. The resistance drops to zero and adoption becomes exponential.
I really want to ground this in the reality of the listener because like this ancient text is essentially describing the algorithm for going viral.
It really is.
It taps deeply into our cognitive biases, specifically the social proof bias. When we see a massive wave of people moving in one direction, our brains naturally feel safe joining them.
Right. It's the bandwagon effect.
Exactly.
And the neurological mechanism behind social proof is fascinating. The text frames this mass influx as a process that extinguishes social anxiety and the modern fear of missing out.
Oh, FOMO.
Yeah, FOMO. When you see the multitudes entering, your brain's threat detection centers calm down. The isolation vanishes, replaced by a flood of neurochemicals associated with a collective sense of belonging.
Okay, wait. I have to throw a red flag on the play here.
Okay, what is it?
Because there is a very dark side to scaling that fast. If everyone is just flooding into the system purely because of social proof, aren't we just talking about herd mentality? I mean, if the firewall is down and bulk data is rushing in, aren't we just building massive, unthinking echo chambers where people blindly imitate whatever the person next to them is doing?
That is the exact risk. The danger of scaling too fast without a filter is exactly what crashes most networks.
Right.
But the document addresses this vulnerability through what it terms the Socratic dosage questioning layer.
Socratic dosage questioning.
Yeah. It draws a very sharp structural line between blind imitation and conscious alignment.
But how do you practically differentiate the two when the growth is exponential? Like a wave is a wave.
Well, the difference lies in shared intentionality. The text introduces the Japanese sociological concept of wa, or social harmony.
Wow.
And why is completely distinct from a mindless mob. In
Right.
a mob, individuals lose their cognitive autonomy. They are just reacting to the immediate movement of the crowd.
Just reacting, yeah.
But wa requires the individuals to consciously unite under a shared vision, which the text refers to as the dean, or the overarching system architecture.
So it's the difference between like a panicked crowd fleeing a building and a synchronized orchestra playing a symphony.
Exactly.
In both cases, people are doing the same thing at the same time, but the mechanism driving them is completely different.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. It's about achieving a collective flow state. The Oxford social epistemology layer within the analysis looks at how knowledge and belief actually spread through a network. When individuals align intentionally, maintaining their critical thinking but directing it toward a shared goal, the scaling becomes structurally sustainable.
It doesn't break the system.
Right. The network strengthens with each new node rather than buckling under the weight of chaotic, misaligned data.
Okay, let's take stock of where we are, because we've covered a lot.
We have.
You've triggered the breakthrough by connecting to the external API. You've navigated the exponential scaling phase by ensuring conscious alignment rather than herd mentality.
Yep.
If this were a modern Silicon Valley startup narrative, the story ends right here.
Right. You ring the bell at the stock exchange, the screen fades to black, and you take your victory lap.
Exactly. But this text pivots sharply. It introduces a highly counterintuitive final step specifically to prevent the victorious system from destroying itself.
And this final phase is perhaps the most profound mechanism in the entire analysis.
I agree.
The system is now at maximum capacity. It is running at full speed, dealing with immense amounts of data. So what is the ultimate protocol to ensure it doesn't degrade over time?
Right.
The third verse issues a two-part command to the victor. To praise the word is sebi, and to ask for forgiveness, the word is istighfar.
Praise and ask forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right at the pinnacle of total victory.
Yes.
When I first read this, it sounded like purely religious instruction. But when you break down the software meta layer of these two words, it completely blew my mind.
The translation into system architecture is incredibly precise. Sebi, the act of praising or declaring the perfection of the overarching system, is analyzed as system health logging.
System health logging.
Right. It is the intentional process of verifying that the core design is sound, creating positive logs that the fundamental architecture is functioning beautifully.
But then you immediately pair that with Istighfar, asking for forgiveness.
Yes. The text maps Istighfar directly to the computational process of debugging and garbage collection.
Garbage collection. Okay, for anyone listening who doesn't write code for a living, we need to unpack what that actually looks like under the hood.
Oh, sure. In computer science, when a software program is running, it dynamically allocates memory to perform tasks.
Makes sense.
But if the program is poorly written, it might forget to release that memory back to the system once the task is finished.
Oh.
This creates what's called a memory leak. It's like opening 100 different browser tabs over the course of a day. Eventually, the system's memory fills up with junk data, everything slows to a crawl, and the whole computer crashes.
The dreaded frozen screen.
Exactly. So garbage collection is the automated background process of hunting down those memory leaks, clearing out the unused data, and resetting the memory space so the system can keep running efficiently.
So, just to be clear, is the text suggesting we just wipe our memory completely? Like some kind of forced amnesia, where we just delete all our past mistakes and pretend they never happened?
Not at all. Amnesia would mean deleting the learning algorithm itself. Garbage collection doesn't delete the core code. It deletes the lingering, useless data that is dragging down performance.
Oh, I see.
In human terms, Istighfar isn't about forgetting the error. It's about acknowledging the error, logging the lesson, and then deleting the heavy, useless emotional weight of the guilt.
Wow.
You keep the data, but you dump the emotional memory leak.
That distinction is massive. Because think about what this means for you right after your biggest win. You are standing on top of the mountain. Psychologically, that is exactly when you're most susceptible to the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Ah, yes. The cognitive bias, where people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their abilities. The illusion of total mastery.
You think you are flawless. You think your code has no bugs, your business strategy has no holes, your life is perfectly optimized.
And you couldn't be more wrong.
Exactly. But this ancient text is holding up a stop sign. It's saying, no, right at the peak of your success, when your ego is inflating the fastest, you are mandated to run a post-mortem analysis.
Yeah.
You have to actively hunt for the memory leaks in your own behavior before they crash your life.
The Harvard methodology layer of the document frames this perfectly. The standard corporate instinct is to only run a post-mortem analysis when a project fails disastrously.
Right, when everything's on fire.
But a robust system runs a post-mortem when a project succeeds.
Oh, that's so counterintuitive, but so smart.
That is how you institutionalize the learning and catch the hidden errors that were masked by the overall victory. And this leads directly to the final critical attribute mentioned in the verse, Tawwab.
The acceptor of repentance.
Yes. Tawwab is described as the system's inherent architectural capacity for fault tolerance.
Fault-Tolerant.
The document connects this directly to ETH Zurich's advanced research on cyber resilience.
Cyber resilience,
Right.
meaning the system is built from the ground up with the assumption that it will take damage and encounter bugs.
Exactly. A fragile system is designed under the assumption of perfection. The moment a bug is introduced, it shatters. A fault-tolerant system, however, has a flexible, self-healing core. It anticipates errors.
But knows they're coming.
Yes. It detects the bug through the Istighfar process, but it doesn't initiate a catastrophic shutdown. It utilizes its Tawwab capacity to repair itself, operate in a safe mode if necessary, and continue functioning while the error is resolved.
The emotional resonance of applying fault tolerance to human psychology is just staggering.
It really is.
Think about what this does to the human brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, which handles our complex planning and decision-making. We live in an era characterized by the crushing pressure of perfectionism.
Oh, absolutely. The prefrontal cortex is exhausted by the constant vigilance required to maintain the illusion of flawlessness.
Because if you believe your personal system is fragile, if you believe one mistake will destroy your career or your reputation, every single decision is terrifying.
Paralysis by analysis.
Yes, but by trusting the system's capacity for error forgiveness, by integrating the Tawwab protocol, you are freed from that paralyzing anxiety.
You can actually breathe.
Exactly. If you know the overarching system is designed to handle your bugs, you don't have a spiral into a deep depression every time you make a human error.
The text builds a negative feedback loop right into the moment of victory. It forces you to actively acknowledge your flaws, your bugs, while simultaneously reminding you that the system is robust enough to forgive and clear those bugs.
It's brilliant.
It neutralizes the arrogance of success and the anxiety of failure in the exact same step.
It is an incredible synthesis. Let's pull the camera back for a second and look at the whole picture.
Sure.
We've explored this 19-layer analysis of a 3-verse text, and it has provided a holistic 3-step architecture that rivals any modern organizational psychology textbook.
Easily?
Step 1, the event trigger. Acknowledging the external API have helped to bypass our own limited processing power and avoid success arrogance.
Right.
Step 2, mass contagion. Scaling the breakthrough not through blind herd mentality, but through conscious alignment and social harmony. Well, exactly. And step 3, the debugging protocol. Running garbage collection on your ego at the absolute height of success to ensure your system remains fault-tolerant.
As a blueprint for sustainable growth, both organizational and psychological, it is incredibly elegant.
It is. And, knowledge is only useful if we apply it.
Very true.
The document actually features an atomic habit layer, suggesting a very specific routine that you can implement today, the evening retrospective.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah. So take just a few minutes tonight to run the 3 protocols. First, Acknowledge the external factors that helped you succeed today.
Right.
What API did you lean on? That's your anti-arrogance protocol.
Oh, right.
Second, assess your social alignment. Who are you surrounding yourself with? And are you moving together with shared purpose? That's your anti-echo chamber protocol.
Perfect.
And third, debug your daily errors. Admit what you got wrong, log the lesson, and clear the emotional cache. That is your anti-perfectionism protocol.
It functions as a very practical, daily neurological reprogramming exercise.
It really does.
And examining this mechanism leads me to one final thought, actually, drawing from the Oxford moral stoicism layer mentioned at the very end of the text.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, we live in a culture that absolutely worships the illusion of a flawless launch. We demand the perfect product, the perfect career trajectory, the perfect public image right out of the gate.
We do.
We treat any deviation from perfection as a fatal system error.
We act like any mistake is the end of the line.
But what if true? Enduring perfection isn't about the impossible standard of never making an error. What if true perfection is actually about having an infinite built-in capacity for a system restore? What if your fault tolerance, your ability to detect a bug, clear the junk data, and heal without crashing is actually your greatest feature and not a bug?
Wow. So what does this all mean for you tomorrow morning? It means the next time you find yourself staring at a massive glaring bug in your code, or a sudden unexpected failure in your own life. Well, remember that the diagnostic landscape isn't binary. The break, the error, the desperate need for external help that isn't the end of your system.
No, it's not.
According to the architecture of this ancient text, hitting that wall might just be the exact event trigger required to open your firewall and let the multitudes in.